Hello, everyone, and welcome to Intel on AI. I am Ryan Carson, your host today, and I am joined by a couple really smart guys, and I'm excited to have a chat with them today. First of all, I'm joined by Bill Pearson from Intel. How you doing, Bill? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm good, Ryan. Thanks. Yeah, I work at Intel, and I'm in the data center and artificial intelligence group, where I work on software for solutions and our ecosystem.
Awesome. Good to have you here. We're also fortunate to be joined by Baris Sarer. He is the global industry leader of Deloitte's AI practice for technology, media entertainment, and telecom industries. He's got 20 years of experience. He's a recognized thought leader. He's a frequent speaker on how AI is transforming business and culture. He has guided C-suite executives in using data and intelligent technologies to drive business value and has led complex programs to scale AI capabilities. Today, he's focusing on unlocking AI's potential TMT sector, buying opportunities, value creation, and of course, monetization. Baris, good to have you here. How are you doing today?
Very good.
Good.
It's
good to have you
here with you guys today.
So let's kick it off and talk a lot about RAG. Everybody is interested in RAG, how it can transform business. But first of all, what is it? Bill, why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, RAG is an acronym for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And essentially what it allows you to do is take your enterprise data, all that knowledge and treasure trove that we all have in our enterprise, and marry that with the power of large language models. So we can take the things that LLMs do really well in terms of language interpretation and all of that, marry that with enterprise data and start extracting value from the enterprise data in a way that's used across industries, across different use cases, to really make it more efficient to process and expose that data to the needs of the business.
Right. It's exciting because we're actually going to be able to really use our data and draw exciting and important observations from that. So, Baris, where are we at with adoption of RAG in the enterprise? What's actually happening out there?
Yeah, well, RAG is right now the most popular way of implementing LLM-based solutions in the enterprise. Full stop. Now, how did we get here? If we just take a quick step back, as Bill suggested, enterprise have a tremendous amount of valuable information buried deep within their knowledge repositories, and we all have some ways of managing and accessing it and some tools to facilitate. But by and large, it's been a struggle for many enterprises to surface that information and make it useful. An invention of LLMs created the opportunity to leverage these vast repositories of unstructured, primarily data, and then RAG emerged and it proved to be the most simple, straightforward, secure, and also predictable way of using LLMs for the enterprise, using enterprise data. Basically, you point at your own data stored in a safe and secure place, and you turn the temperature down so the model is not getting too creative. Yes, probably zero. Yes, well, exactly zero. And our clients noticed this early in the game, back in 2023, and since then, RAG pattern has become the most common way of using LLMs in the enterprise. Now, it's not the only way to do it. You could also take a pre-trained model and fine-tune it with your own data, but that process tends to be a little bit more experimental in nature and costlier, and more complicated from a technical standpoint. So while I do expect to see competing architectures emerge for the foreseeable future, at least my prediction is that we'll see RAG architecture to continue to be the most common way of adopting LLM, at least for the most common enterprise use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're going to touch on reference architectures from things like OPA in the future so that organizations can actually roll this stuff out without having to relearn everything. But let's dig in a little bit to the details out there. So it's exciting for us to say, great, you can take your data, ingest it, apply RAG to it and get insights out. But obviously data is really messy, like in the real world. And I'm curious, what is happening out in the wild with people taking that data, cleaning it, structuring it, ingesting it? How are people actually doing it? Baris, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, the way I think about this process is almost like I would say a three-layered cake. One is what fuels this is, to your point, Ryan, data. And then now when you think about data, historically, for analytical purposes, when we said data, we typically meant structured data. and that's maybe 20% of all data that we have. So right now we're looking at maybe that scope, five-folding, right? So now you have more data and more types of data that you need to manage, right? More messy data. And now the good news is LLMs are proficient in handling unstructured data, but you still own the data. There's compliance, there are regulations, there are ways in which you want to use it. There are different degrees of precision you want to achieve with your data. So I think data governance is going to become more complicated moving forward, right? Where the LLM magic happens at the second layer, the RAG combined with large language models, I think that part is the least problematic part, in my opinion. The models continue to improve, RAG architectures continue to improve. I think it's just going to get better and better. Now, at the third layer of the cake, you need to make sure that the right people access the right data at the right time. So you have to apply the right types of access controls at that level. So that's the way I conceptualize it, especially from a data management, privacy, and security perspective. Bill, I don't know if you got...
Yeah, exactly the same. And one of the benefits of taking a paradigm like RAG is that you're able to keep the data, in your secure data enclaves, able to have it, be secure and have access limited to just the people that need it. So we're not retraining models, we're not sharing data with, other enterprises. We're keeping the data right where we want it inside of our enterprise and our enterprise repositories. And then, as the LLMs get better, as you said, they can evolve independently and they never need to know about our data. So we can keep that data, again, secure, grant access only as needed. And this is super important for industries that have lots of data and privacy requirements like many of them do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that most companies are not comfortable shipping off their private secure files to, one of the large labs. It can't be in a cloud that they don't control, that they don't understand, that they can't secure. And also, a lot of those solutions aren't open source either. So I know that we're really passionate about open source secure solutions at Intel, and I'm sure that's why we're working with Deloitte on that as well. So Baris, but is the 3-layer cake, does it taste good?
So far, so good.
Good.
It's
chocolate.
Yeah, look, I think the sentiment, and I think this is a fact that everybody knows, that the last couple of years have been the years of proof of concept. And coming out of these experiments across all industries, I'm very familiar with my own industry, but I think the sentiment continues to be bullish that there's a there. And RAG continues to be the key enabler of AI and specifically large language models for enterprise.
Absolutely. Yeah, as we see the hallucination percentage go to zero and citations become absolutely correct, as we see these things roll out in the real world, I know that people are going to begin to truly trust RAG solutions and then essentially have an expert who's always on, who knows all of your data all the time. So let's talk about security, though, and compliance, because I think most folks are going to be afraid to actually use RAG because of this. So let's dive in a little bit and talk about, okay, in the real world, how are we doing some of these things? What are some examples? I would like to dive into that.
Yeah, I could start. There's a couple of examples maybe I'll give. One is inside of Intel, we've implemented our standard access control for data. So when I use our RAG systems, I see things that I'm entitled to. And if I want to see more things, I have to request permissions to those things, which I may or may not get access to. And so each individual has access, in this AI world to that RAG data that they're entitled to by the enterprise. So it's very tightly controlled and it's fine-grained. It's not, broad at all. And this can be customized and is customized to the needs of the organization. This summer, we talked about our work with the Olympics and some of the RAG solution that we used there. As we did that, the IOC actually loaded the documents into the RAG solution that they wanted to use. And so they controlled explicitly what information was going to be part of that solution and what wasn't. And as that data was updated, they were able to update that data, adding and removing documents, changing them and updating them. And so, there's different ways of approaching this, but all of them involve the enterprise being in control of who has access to the data and in what form.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people that are that haven't implemented RAG yet don't understand that giving access and privacy is similar to the way we currently do in the enterprise. We decide which documents you can see, and then only those documents get fed to the RAG pipeline. So it's actually not, black magic. It's pretty straightforward, and we can trust these things going forward. Baris, do you have more thoughts on this?
No, I think Bill described it really succinctly, and Ryan, I really like the additional point that you made. People, at least initially, a lot of our clients were concerned about, okay, but how do we control this? It's just like, how do you control anything else in the enterprise? And that's why I share this kind of three-layered cake model. The part that people got really concerned about was the middle part, but RAG actually solves that problem of pointing the model at your own data in a secure and contained way. Now, the rest is like your data governance on steroids, because now you're handling more data, and then your access control management on steroid, because these solutions start proliferating across the enterprise. And at some point, I think we could reasonably expect that all of our knowledge bases, whatever the topic may be, should sit in some kind of RAG architecture and served through an LLM. And so you have to be extra careful on which access you give to whom and when and why.
Right. I think folks are conflating the training side of large language models, where they hear things like this was trained on all the world's data, but we don't know exactly what. And they confuse that with the way RAG works, which is these are documents we're retrieving and running generation on these documents. And there's no mixing of the weights. It's very segmented.
Yeah, and I think we all contribute to it. I don't know, Bill, if you have a perspective on this, but I keep hearing things like, well, fine-tuning a model, or RAG is not actually fine-tuning the model at all. But we use a lot of words interchangeably, and so you hear in one conversation, fine-tuning is risky because the model sucks in all your data, and then all of a sudden you're exposed, right? But then if you use the same fine-tuning language for RAG, then you equate the two, and you start worrying about, we don't want to do this. This is great risk. So I think it's important to be more precise on the language that we use.
Absolutely. Are you out in the wild? Are you seeing people fine tune very much, or is it primarily RAG?
It's primarily RAG. Technology companies are more eager to get in the fine tuning game, obviously, because they just have more technical depth. So I'm sure Intel or our Deloitte people would be more comfortable fine-tuning a model than maybe some other companies. The fine-tuning side of things are developing too. You got LoRa type of solutions where you don't have to retain the entire model, but focus on certain elements of it. So the risk of adding something to the model at the same time breaking something else would get reduced. So I think we're going to see more fine-tuning as an alternative to RAG, but I think it's going to be more pointed to add, hey, if you want to really add a specialty capability to the model with some domain knowledge that's not specific to the enterprise, that's when you start going down the fine-tuning path. For all other use cases, I think RAG is as good as any. I don't know, Bill.
What I'll add to that is this is an industry, a space that's evolving quickly. And I think we're just at the beginning. It's got a long way to run. But when you look at enterprises today, RAG is a paradigm that is common. It's a paradigm that is used widely in different forms, whether it's chatbots or summarization or what have you. And it's something that has really clear boundaries, as Baris was saying, so we can keep our data very, very secure and not mix the model at all. As the new techniques evolve, there'll be other options available to enterprise customers, and we'll have to make sure that collectively as an industry we're explaining those precisely, and as enterprise leaders, we'll need to make choices about which method and methodology is going to be good for our business. But like I said, today RAG is certainly applicable to many industries and enterprises.
And maybe just a quick point to add on Bill, also, smaller models are getting more proficient, and that creates, let's say, more plausible or feasible opportunities to actually do a little bit of fine-tuning, because you don't need to go take a giant frontier model and try to reinvent it.
Absolutely. Which kind of leads us to the point of thinking about doing inference on the edge on AI PCs, where we've got small models and we could have truly private files on your local machine. Are we starting to see this yet out in the wild, or folks mostly having inference done in the cloud?
Well, I actually happen to lead our on-device AI practice too, so it's a
Good to
topic
tell
that's
some of that.
very near and dear to my heart. And we just recently developed a project in partnership with Intel, so maybe I could talk a little bit about that because it brings a lot of the things that we talked about together. So first of all, inferencing is moving to the edge. That's for sure. And in our philosophy, that still needs to be market tested and proven. We're still in the early innings, but is that if you can inference locally, why not do it locally? It's safe, secure. You're externalizing the cost, and we're seeing a lot of software companies are getting excited in this topic because they see the value in externalizing the cost while not compromising on the quality. And so I want to mention this project. We partnered up with Intel to take a solution that we had developed internally for Deloitte and make it a hybrid solution that runs both on cloud and on device. The background is this. We took 3,500 knowledge base articles from our IT database. We put them on an enterprise rack provided by Intel, and we put it on a laptop equipped by an Intel chip, and we run a small language model. So basically, if you're an employee, instead of picking up the phone and calling your IT center or browsing through endless frequently asked question articles, you're just using a chatbot that's running locally on your laptop. You don't even need an internet connection. And then query any of these 3,500 typical IT issues that we have in our repository. And we initially did it in partnership with a PC maker to demonstrate the power of on-device. But now in partnership with Intel, we actually created a hybrid orchestrator that looks at the inference, nature of the inference, and looks at the system resources available and dynamically determines whether to keep that inference locally or serve it locally or ship it over to the cloud. And I'm really excited to actually take this to the market and show the power of not just on-device or edge AI, but the combination of the two.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I think that's why we're all so excited about Lunar Lake and what we're doing with total tops on the system. And not here to talk about Intel and how excited we are, but it's really exciting to see edge inference really fast. Bill, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what this is demonstrating is two things. One is that cost is a factor in the enterprise. So it's not just about getting the performance that you need, but it's getting cost you can afford for the performance that you require for your business. And so having compute that you already own do some of that saves cost and is an efficient way of applying it. The second point is about distributed computing. So this notion of this orchestrator that Baris was talking about, where it intelligently looks at where's the best place to run this. Do I require a data center and put it there? Great. Can I get this done on my local device? Let's do it there. Great. And I think you'll see more of this distributed compute paradigm where we're able to, as an industry, leverage more of the compute that's already there and then add, compute workloads to the right device at the right time.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting because I assume if we do this right, the users won't even know, or should they care? But obviously it makes a big difference to the bottom line, total cost of ownership. We've already got a whole fleet of AI PCs. We should be doing inference on the edge. So speaking of exciting things that are happening, Bill, what are you seeing in the near future with cutting edge RAG solutions, things that are coming down the pipeline? Would love to hear thoughts.
Yeah. There's a variety of things. One, of course, the at Intel that I'm excited about is the continual evolution of the hardware that supports this, whether it's looking at higher memory bandwidth or other things that make for more efficient CPUs and GPUs to drive AI. We're working on those. The industry's working on those, and new products continue to evolve and come out that are just better for AI. In addition to that, the software that runs on top of that hardware, is also evolving. And actually, I bet Baris has a lot to say about that software as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So different RAG solutions and RAG alternatives are also proliferating, but it comes at a cost. But it's also to be expected as technologies evolve. They get cost optimized as one of the benefits of maturing. And so I like the fact that there are alternative RAG approaches emerging. I also like the fact that, and we already talked a little bit about that, there are more efficient ways of fine-tuning becoming available because RAG also needs a competitor. And I like the dynamic of these different technologies competing each other, and then we all get better educated on which use case or which technology is well suited for which use case, and what are the costs and performance implications. I'm encouraged by the amount of progress that's being made in this space overall.
Maybe I'll add one thing to that, if I may, which is I'm also encouraged by the way that the ecosystem is working together on this. We're seeing startups flourish, first off, which is healthy. It helps us innovate. We're also seeing open source projects. There's one we participate in, the Open Platform for Enterprise AI. This is an initiative that has over 40 contributors, 40 participants today, and multiple contributors, and it's growing. And the idea is, rather than each of us solve some of these challenges one at a time, how do we work together as an industry to solve them for each other in a way that's open, in a way that's flexible and scalable, so that we can really accelerate the state of the art?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very excited about OPIA and what we're doing there. And that effect, it's not just an Intel thing. It's actually very much an industry-wide effort to figure out how do we build reference architectures for these things people can actually ship them. So on that front, as I said at the beginning, RAG isn't easy, right? This is a new muscle that people are learning how to exercise. And I'm curious, are we going to see organizations appear in enterprise where folks are starting to own the RAG pipeline? Is this going to be done by the infrastructure team? Who owns the RAG pipeline in enterprises in the future? Baris, what do you think?
Well, yeah. Let me take a shot at this. It depends on the organization. The ultimate consulting answer, right? But look, again, going back to the three-layered cake, data is going to be owned by the business. That will continue to be the case. Data governance will continue to sit under wherever it sits today with some additional layer of complexity. I do think, and I'm seeing that happening across our client portfolio, the whole AI enablement level, let's say, where you have the LLMs and RAG architectures and your vector database, that's becoming part of the IT infrastructure, right, or IT ecosystem. So, depend. I started with saying depends because it depends on how the titles and the roles in the organization. But if there's a CDAO organization, I think that's going to sit there. If the IT organization is really the main technology team, I think it's going to sit there. But I think it's quickly becoming part of the enterprise IT reference architecture.
Got it.
Integral part of it.
What about evaluating these RAG pipelines? We actually have to understand on a continual basis, are they working? Are they hallucinating? Are they valuable? How does evaluation fit into this? And how is this starting to happen in the real world? Either Bill or Baris, would love to hear your take on that.
Maybe a couple of things with this. One is that there are frameworks today that exist for doing evaluation, and you can quantify, some of that. So these frameworks are things that anyone can go and put into their systems. I know with the Open Platform for Enterprise AI, there's frameworks that are part of that as well. One of the goals that we have, and I would argue it's shared, is to make, you said it's complicated, and it is, but when I think about the evolution of AI, it was not too long ago the realm of essentially very specialized skills. Today, it's owned by the IT department, arguably a broader set of generalized skills, right? So AI is becoming part of just how we work. And as it does that, we're aiming to make it easier and easier for folks to use. And as you see these type of things evolve, what's gonna start happening is, I think organizations, sure, they're gonna need to have proven data, but that's gonna become part of brand awareness. It's become a part of a product value that people are providing, whether it's companies like Deloitte or it's packaged software that they're using to deploy as part of their solutions. So the role of the enterprise in this, will be making sure their data is properly governed, protected, and ready, making sure they're choosing vendors and implementing infrastructure accurately. But again, it's part of the normal IT flow. So some of that specialized knowledge is not necessarily going to be needed because we're able to democratize AI and make it more accessible to more types of skill sets and people.
Absolutely. It is exciting to see it roll out across all the normal organizations. So on that front, I want to back up for our listeners who know they need to implement a RAG solution, and they haven't done it yet. Maybe they're paralyzed by the choice And so why don't we propose a pretty straightforward way to pick a RAG solution, assuming that you need to take a baby step to get there. Why don't we walk through that, Baris? Why don't you tackle it first? And then,
well, there are three major components to the solution: your vector database, your RAG solution, RAG tool, let's call it, and then your large language model. Now you have many options across the board, and this has become an internal conversation in our firm. A couple of years ago, there were like very set technology ecosystems that you can put some of the decisions on autopilot. But now we're back into like startups, open source platforms, forums, right? I don't think there's no vendor lock-in. Like there's no reason because you're working with vendor A here, you should work with the same vendor or someone from that ecosystem. You have to make three independent decisions. A lot of the performance benchmarks are readily available in the marketplace. That's it. That's really it. Three major decisions, lots of performance benchmarks, and ultimately you have to understand that this is a fast evolving technology. You don't want to get paralyzed by these decisions. And it's relatively easy to swap things in and out too. I don't know, Bill, if
I was going to say call Deloitte, ask for Baris. That's the answer.
I didn't want to say that, but thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
David Block.
As maybe a few points in addition to that, when you're talking to Baris, some of the questions you might ask him just about how well this integrates into what you already have. So if you want to use one manageability solution, for example, if you're orchestrating workloads already, is it something you can leverage here? If you have preferred vendor relationships, I'm already buying boxes from some particular OEM. Can I keep buying those, different boxes to do this job? Sure. I also think, if your industry has specific regulations around it, if you think about HIPAA compliant as an example in a medical field, you'll want to choose solutions that can easily fit into that paradigm and meet those regulatory requirements that you've got. And so, some of the questions are probably the same that you're asking of any application, but you'll want to make sure here that your unique needs are known when you're working with that preferred technology provider.
Absolutely. It's interesting, Baris, you're saying it is like we're kind of being thrown back into a world of many options where, want to build a web app, now it's pretty straightforward, right? You've got a couple of frameworks everybody uses. The infrastructure is pretty clear. And now, there's a lot of moving parts, but it's nice to condense it down into those three, right? I think it's interesting, though, to note that even though the LLMs are hot swappable, there still is a big choice between closed and open. Am I going to bet on OpenAI or Anthropic, or am I going to go truly open source and bet on a llama? And it's fascinating to see how we're really seeing the open source models keep up pretty fast innovation from the big labs. So we'll see how it shakes out. I'll just personally say, I think it's super important people are thinking about evaluation. And it's pretty easy to ship it and not really know if it's working or not. And the hard part is you have to think ahead and say, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve and how would we measure the outcome of that? But it's all part of the fun. So, all right. So RAG, it seems like it is going to be a part of every enterprise, every business, every town, everything in the world, which is pretty. Every family probably all have a family RAG pretty soon. So I can keep track of my kids. But if we really want to know more, let's dig into pointing some people at some resources. So, Baris, where should people go to learn more about enterprise RAG?
So first of all, there's Deloitte. We have tremendous amount of eminence developed, both technical and targeting different audiences, technology audiences, as well as business leaders who are in positions to make some key technology decisions in partnership with their IT organizations. Love for people to reach out to us and help you with some of these decisions.
Absolutely. Bill, how about you? Where should folks go to learn more about RAG and the enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just launched a whole set of pages on this on Intel.com. You can go and find out information about solutions that we're providing, partners that are working with us on enterprise, whether it's in the data center, in the edge, or in the client, or some combination of all of those, like Baris is doing.
Absolutely. And I'd encourage everybody listening, also ask a large language model. If you want some ideas, you've got this helpful assistant. That's
not
ready.
a bad idea.
So thanks everybody for listening. Thank you to my amazing guests, Bill and Baris, for being here today. We're really excited about pushing this innovation forward so more people can benefit from their data, can have more innovation, more knowledge. Really excited to push this forward. So thanks for being here, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Thanks.
Visit intel.com/AI to learn more.